Why Kody and Robyn chose a calm, structured relationship health check instead of sliding into another emotionally charged argument. Key detail is not just what they talked about, but how they approached it. When a couple labels a conversation as a checkup, it signals intention. It means they're not simply reacting to a new conflict in the moment. They're acknowledging that something deeper has been building and that the relationship needs attention in a controlled way. It's the language of repair. You don't do a health check when everything feels stable. You do it when you sense the system is strained and you want to prevent a full breakdown. The ATV setting matters more than it seems. The location connects back to the moment Robyn fell last season, which makes it a natural symbol of vulnerability. Going back to that place becomes a quiet reminder that things can change suddenly, and that what looks like fun can become a problem in seconds. For a couple under pressure, that's a powerful metaphor. They're revisiting a site associated with risk and recovery, and using it as a backdrop to talk about their own emotional injuries. In a subtle way, the location gives the conversation a meaning beyond words. It frames the checkup as a reset, almost like saying, "We've fallen before. We're still here. Now we have to deal with what's underneath." This approach also shows why couples often choose neutral settings for serious conversations. When emotions are high at home, small triggers can escalate quickly. Familiar spaces hold emotional memory. A kitchen table can feel like a courtroom if it's where fights usually happen. A living room can feel like a pressure chamber if it's where silence and resentment sit. A neutral setting lowers the chance of falling into automatic arguments, creates a new atmosphere where both people can speak more carefully. It becomes a container that reduces the intensity just enough to make honesty possible. What this health checkup suggests is that their marriage currently feels unstable in cycles. Even if they have good moments, they don't fully trust the stability of those moments. The checkup is a sign they're trying to catch the relationship before it slips into another damaging pattern. It also signals that they know there is damage and they want to address it openly, rather than pretending it will fix itself with time. Viewers can read this as a shift from denial to responsibility. It's not romantic in the traditional sense, but it is serious. The most important takeaway is simple. This wasn't romance. It was maintenance. And maintenance means the relationship is under pressure. The emotional aftershock that follows long, repeated breakups and how that aftershock can change a person inside a marriage that is still standing. Kody doesn't describe their current struggles as a sudden problem between him and Robyn. He connects it to a longer timeline, saying they've been going through 4 years or more of breakup with the family. That one statement reframes everything, suggests that what viewers are seeing now isn't just a couple having a rough patch. It's a relationship trying to function while carrying the weight of years of loss, conflict, and public fallout. When breakups happen over a long period, they stop feeling like single events and start feeling like an ongoing condition. It becomes chronic stress. In that kind of pressure, the body and mind don't reset. The nervous system stays on alert. Trust becomes fragile. Patience shortens. Even small situations can feel like threats because the person has been living in a state of emotional defense for so long. That's why prolonged separation can rewire someone's mood and identity. Changes how they interpret the world. A neutral comment can feel like criticism. A normal disagreement can feel like betrayal. A reminder of the past can instantly trigger anger, shame, or bitterness. This is where the remaining marriage can become a storage room for unresolved emotion. Robyn isn't only dealing with Kody as her partner in the present. She's also dealing with the version of him shaped by the collapse of the bigger family structure. That aftermath version often comes with grief that hasn't been fully processed, and grief doesn't always show up as sadness. Very often it shows up as irritability, control, defensiveness, and a need to protect one's ego. After repeated losses, the person may start operating from a mindset of "I'm not losing again," and that mindset can create harsh reactions and rigid expectations. It's not always logical, but it feels protective to the person experiencing it. Repeated losses can also create an always-on-edge personality. When someone has experienced multiple relationship endings, they can start anticipating the next one even in moments of calm. They may watch for signs of rejection, read between the lines, and react quickly to anything that feels like disrespect. In a marriage, that can be exhausting for the partner who stays because they are not only managing the relationship, they are managing the emotional climate. Partner becomes a stabilizer, and stabilizers often burn out when the storm never fully passes. This is why the phrase "fighting for our marriage" can carry two truths at the same time. Can be sincere because it shows they want to keep what remains and rebuild something healthier. But it can also reveal instability because a stable relationship doesn't usually feel like constant fighting for survival. The fact that they need to name it as a fight suggests the foundation is shaky and the emotional residue from past breakups is still active. The session ends with the real point. They're not only repairing a marriage, they're cleaning up years of emotional debris, and until that debris is faced directly, it will keep spilling into the present no matter how much they want a fresh start. Breaks down the most revealing part of the news, Robyn's description of a repeated cycle in their relationship. She doesn't talk about a single fight or one disagreement that went too far. She describes a loop. In her words, there are periods where Kody is back to himself, where they feel like the couple they normally are, and she calls that version of their relationship really beautiful. Then, she says, something will happen and he reverts back to the angry divorced guy. That sentence is powerful because it shows the problem is not just conflict. It's inconsistency. It's the emotional whiplash of going from warmth and connection to tension and anger, again and again. The first phase of the loop is the good phase, and it matters that Robyn names it with affection. She describes moments where Kody is calm, present, and familiar. The relationship feels normal. They have a great time. This is the phase that keeps hope alive. When a couple has genuine good moments, it becomes harder to accept that something is wrong because the good moments feel like proof that things can work. That's why cycles can be more painful than constant conflict. With constant conflict, the pain is predictable. You stop expecting peace. But with a cycle, the peace returns just long enough for you to believe again, and then it disappears. Hope rises, then drops, and the drop hurts more every time. The second phase is the trigger, and it's telling that Robyn keeps it vague. Something will happen. That vagueness often means the triggers are not always dramatic or obvious. They can be small reminders that connect to deeper wounds. In the context of the news you shared, the likely triggers are tied to the broader collapse of the family and the divorces. Kody himself mentions years of breakups. When a person is carrying that much unresolved emotion, everyday events can activate the same feelings of rejection, humiliation, or loss. Comment that sounds like criticism can become a reminder of being left. A stressful day can turn into a sense of being unsupported. A family-related memory can bring back anger. Triggers don't need to be logical to be powerful. They just need to connect to an emotional scar. The third phase is the crash. Robyn says he reverts, which is a very specific word. It implies a shift backward, like someone slipping into an older version of themselves. It's not just Kody being angry. It's Kody becoming a particular identity, the angry divorced guy. That matters because it suggests the anger is not only about the current moment. It's a role he falls into. It's a defensive position. When someone reverts like that, it feels to the partner like they are suddenly dealing with a different person. That can be destabilizing because it creates uncertainty. Partner starts living in anticipation of the next switch. They become careful, guarded, and tired even in the good phase. This is why the loop becomes the real threat. Creates a roller coaster of closeness and distance, and roller coasters exhaust relationships. Over time, the issue stops being the trigger itself and becomes the fear of the crash. The relationship starts revolving around managing moods, avoiding triggers, and recovering from the fallout. The biggest threat here isn't lack of love. It's the repeatable pattern, because if the pattern doesn't change, it doesn't matter how beautiful the good phase feels. Crash will always be waiting. Focuses on one of the most loaded lines in the news. Kody saying their union becomes great when he is being himself. On the surface, it sounds simple, even hopeful. Suggests that when he feels like his real self, the relationship flows naturally and feels good. But that sentence can mean two very different things, and the direction it takes depends on one factor: accountability. That's why this line is worth examining. Can point to healing, or it can quietly reveal a problem that keeps repeating. The first interpretation is the healthy one. Being myself could mean Kody is calmer, more present, more authentic, and less emotionally reactive. After years of family conflict and multiple breakups, a person can feel like they're constantly performing, defending, or bracing for the next hit. In that state, they're not themselves, they're a stressed version of themselves. Kody is saying the marriage works when he is being himself. It could mean that when he's regulated and grounded, he connects better with Robyn. He listens. He jokes. He's affectionate. He doesn't carry the anger of the past into the present. In this version, the statement is actually an insight. The marriage improves when he returns to a healthier baseline, and their bond is strongest when he's not driven by resentment. The second interpretation is riskier, and it's the one that viewers often pick up on because it fits patterns seen in many relationships. Being myself can sometimes be code for I get to be how I want and everyone else must adjust. In that version, myself becomes my comfort, my rules, my way, and no one gets to challenge it. If Robyn is expected to absorb emotional swings or accept harsh behavior because that's just how he is, then being myself becomes an excuse rather than a goal. Shifts responsibility away from behavior and places it on identity, as if criticism of actions is criticism of the person. That can be dangerous because it blocks growth. It also keeps the relationship locked in the same loop. Good moments when he feels satisfied and conflict when he feels challenged. This is why the sentence matters so much. Robyn's comments in the same story suggest that when things are good, they're very good, but when something triggers Kody, he reverts into an angry, divorced guy. That shows the relationship rises and falls depending on his internal state. When he's regulated, the connection feels beautiful. When he's not regulated, the marriage becomes unstable. So the real question becomes, what does being myself look like in practice? Does it look like emotional responsibility or emotional permission? A healthy myself includes accountability. It means I can be honest without being cruel. I can be hurt without becoming hostile. I can feel anger and still manage my actions. It also means taking ownership when my behavior harms the relationship, instead of defending it as personality. If myself is healed, the marriage stabilizes because the good phase is no longer temporary. But if myself is entitlement, the cycle repeats because nothing truly changes, only the mood shifts. This session closes with the core takeaway. Be myself can be growth or it can be an excuse. The difference is accountability. The monogamy pressure test and why Kody and Robyn's relationship looks different now that the plural family structure has largely collapsed. The hook is simple and sharp. Now it's just them. No buffer, no distractions, and no other relationships to absorb the tension or redirect the blame. When a marriage becomes the only remaining relationship in a system that used to be shared across multiple partners, it stops being one part of a bigger picture and becomes the entire picture. That shift increases intensity and it changes the rules of survival. After the exits of Mary, Christine, and Janelle, the marriage between Kody and Robyn becomes the main stage. In a plural family dynamic, emotional energy is distributed across many connections. Conflicts can be displaced or diluted. If one relationship is tense, a person may retreat into another relationship, another role, or another household. Even when that dynamic is unhealthy, it can still function as a pressure release valve. When those valves disappear, everything funnels into one connection. Every mood, every disappointment, every unresolved argument, every identity crisis ends up landing on the remaining partner. That is the monogamy pressure test. It exposes what's real, what's unresolved, and what was previously hidden inside the bigger system. Monogamy can increase closeness because there is only one partner to rely on, one home base, one primary bond. But it also increases conflict exposure because there is nowhere to escape the emotional consequences. This matters in the context of your news because Robyn describes Kody as shifting into an angry divorced guy. In a smaller relationship, that persona shows up more clearly and more frequently because there are fewer external outlets. The anger has fewer directions to go, so it comes home, becomes part of daily life instead of being an occasional storm. Even when they have beautiful phases, the partner who stays can start feeling like they're living with an emotional time bomb, waiting for the moment when something will happen and everything flips. This is also why repair now requires consistency, not just good moments. In a plural structure, occasional good periods can feel like progress because other relationships can carry the emotional load when one relationship is unstable. In monogamy, inconsistency becomes exhausting. A pattern of calm followed by anger followed by a reset is not sustainable long-term because the partner never fully relaxes. The real repair is not having one heartfelt conversation or one bonding activity. The real repair is proving over time that the good phase can become the normal phase. Consistency is what rebuilds trust, and trust is what makes a relationship feel safe. For the audience, this is what makes the storyline compelling. Viewers are no longer watching a complicated plural system where problems can be blamed on group dynamics, jealousy, or divided attention. They're watching a simple test with nowhere to hide. Does the relationship work when it's just the two of them? Does Kody regulate his emotions without using the past as an excuse? Does Robyn keep believing in the beautiful version of their relationship? Or does the roller coaster finally wear her down? The audience will be watching for lasting change versus temporary calm, for patterns that break versus patterns that repeat. This isn't just a new chapter. It's the final stress test of who they are without the old system.